And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 63rd episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm your host, Matty Allen, with co-hosts ChrispyMan of HexFire.io and Brisology. Welcome.
Hey
Well,
guys,
thank
how's
you.
it going?
Hi, Brisology. How are you, Maddie?
I'm just glad that I did so much research for so many hours this afternoon on the PulseX bug so that I can try to help educate people tonight. I think that's
Whoa, are
what
you
people
spreading
like
FUD right
to do
now?
on this show. So hit
Oh,
the
sounds
like
like
and subscribe button and order your treasure now in the description below if you're ready to learn something tonight.
Brisology FUD. Let's go.
So have you guys heard of this? Do you know about this?
I know a little bit about this. I heard
I heard
I
about
heard some people providing liquidity were not getting liquidity provider rewards. Is that true?
Yes.
it. Yeah. It made me feel pretty stupid because because I'm providing liquidity, and I kept looking at the numbers and saying they're not changing. And I kept asking questions, and I asked a lot of people about it, and we even started doing research digging into it, but not into the code. And the answer I'd gotten back is it's hard to measure. It's hard to tell. The numbers get folded into the coins, right? The tokens listed,
That's
and
what they told us,
that's
the
what I said.
community at large.
Yeah, so I kept digging. Finally, I just figured out that I must have been too dumb to figure it out, and I didn't go any further. I'm not sure what help desk I would have called. Maybe I would have gone to Hex Dev or Hex Devs or something, or Pulse Devs, and asked further questions. But I asked a lot of people who were in the know, and there you go. That's it. Out of the goodness of my heart.
I disagree with that. Liquidity providers need to be compensated. That's how it works. However, the incentive token, that's where the majority of the fees have been coming from. But let's back things up and let's go through this. So Richard announced about 12 hours ago that it wasn't working the way I guess we had thought it was working. I'm gonna pull up that tweet now so I don't misquote it.
That was my understanding from the tweet.
So it says, it appears that the PulseX buy and burn gets all of the fees, leaving none for the LP. This same code has been in use for years of test nets. No one noticed, including the liquidity providers. The fix that leaves fees for the LPs is on the right below. The current code is on the left. This has nothing to do with the incentive token that the LPs earn in the farms. When the new pairs exist with the new logic, everyone can move over to them if they wish, or they can stay where they are, earning no fees, but giving more to the buy and burn for PulseX. Or you could pull your LP. In summary, if you are an LP in PulseX currently, then you are not earning fees unless you are in a farm, in which case you're earning incentive token. The code you have been running is public and open source. And then he puts a link to the code section. He said, I'll let you know when the new code is live.
So the first thing I noticed was he turned off the comments. And I feel like maybe he was a little embarrassed by this, perhaps, but at the same time, I just know that so many shitlords would give him so much crap about this that I know he had to turn off the comments. So many haters would just be like saying so many reckless things, I think. That's the first thing I noticed.
Like, I am shocked that the community didn't find this earlier. but it's not, it's not the end of the world. I actually should probably almost like rub it in everybody's faces that I kind of predicted this on this show multiple times, or at least what I said was, how cool would it be if there was a bug once Pulse Chain launched and then it made a really good buying opportunity. But look, it could be, I don't know, it could be way better because I already put in like all my dry powder right before this happened, like the day before. So look, even though I might be able to say I predicted it, or at least I called it or something like that, just because you're right in crypto doesn't mean you're gonna, get rich from being right. I mean, there's a difference there. So anyway, this is a really good buying opportunity. Basically, the liquidity providers, they were pumping our PulseX bags to the tune of about 4 times what they should have been. And so anyway, it's kind of weird that the community didn't notice and that this bug was introduced, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really change that much. Being caught this early, it just is. And really, a lot of people are not. There are way more holders of PulseX that benefited from this compared, that's 120,000 people, and the amount of people that were providing liquidity is a very small number. So, and the majority of your rewards was coming from Inc, not from the LP fees that you should have been checking along the way.
Well,
so go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say I'd separate the two things out, Maddie. I think there's what do we do going forward in that, but I wouldn't. I don't know. There are some things that happen that are damaging to people, and so there's what has happened in the past isn't just simply, oh well, there's just not that many people. Let me tell you, it's just not. That's not a fair representation of what happened to people who thought they were getting some sort of fees, right? Was it their responsibility to verify it? Sure.
Yeah.
Was it my responsibility? Sure.
Yeah.
So it's quite a blow, but yeah, I think going forward is where we want to go, right? But I just reacted to your comment.
Yeah, I mean, it's what my estimation is that it was maybe 3% of the total rewards that farm LPs were getting. Now, if you had an LP position in something that didn't have a farm, that's where you were really not getting any benefit at all, unless you're a big PulseX holder. So if you were so let's say you were providing liquidity between SHIB and PLS, you did not do well off of this bug. I mean, because you missed out on that small percentage of fees that you'd be getting to offset your impermanent loss.
Right. And I think there are some people who did some things like that. Like I my plan coming in was to bridge over PRCs and ERCs. And I'm okay with whatever happened with them because they were going to, bridging the ERCs and take the wrap and put them against the PRCs, which I did. And of course, I lost value on that. I didn't expect to win on those, but this whole thing with liquidity provider, don't forget, LPs aren't the enemy. LPs are us. The market's got to get made by somebody. And if
price discovery,
if people don't bring value over, then what are we doing, right?
Correct. So, Brisology, do you want to speak on that?
I just want to say I am providing a little bit of liquidity providing, and basically I was inside 3 different ink farms, I guess, and so I did okay. I was getting ink the whole time, and I'm looking at my particular farms right now, and it says earn ink plus fees, like right here on the thing. So you're like, you just kind of assume that you're earning those fees.
Sure.
But one of the things that I did was I took the back of an envelope and I actually wrote down at the moment that I provided liquidity, I wrote down exactly the dollar cost of the. I'm sorry, I need some water.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is something that I did as well, but wrote it down in Excel though. I didn't actually rip off the back of it.
I wrote it down on the blockchain.
Yeah, I'm ordering it. Well, 'cause I'm keeping it here. I'm like looking at.
We all
this,
had 3
looking at
different
my
ways to write it
screen.
down.
So I wrote down like the dollar amount that I submitted. I wrote down the time and date. I wrote down the exact number of coins that I put in on each side. I think
Did
that's
you write
pretty.
down the block?
I did not write down the block.
Right.
I wrote down the
Don't worry,
ratio.
the blockchain wrote it down for you.
Exactly. I wrote down the ratio of what I put in. So I put in PLS to PLSX. So I put in the ratio. At the time, it was like 2.36 to 1. And I think right now it's over 2.4. And then I wrote down my percentage of the pool and how many LP tokens I got. And so what happened was, throughout this last, few days, I kept on really eyeballing how many PLSX versus how many PLS I had. And I'm just kind of like, I'm like looking at it, and I'd always have more of one than what I put in and less of the other. And so I was always looking at I'm like, okay, I do have more and I do have less, but like I couldn't really see the fees coming. I was expecting one day to just see more of each than I put in, but I just couldn't see those fees. I didn't see the fees accumulating. But at the same time, I was earning the ink. So I would recommend people to do that when they provide liquidity. Write down some of these metrics, exactly what you put in there, and that way you can really keep an eye on it.
I have a really good insight of how people could get wrecked going forward. Okay. So listen up, everybody. Get your envelopes out and take some notes.
Got a new envelope.
One of the things that people who are new or experienced at liquidity providing really need to pay attention to when you migrate your liquidity from what you might call PulseX version 1 to PulseX version 2, meaning the smart contracts that are on PulseX. Because, right, like if you think about Uniswap, like we are all familiar, I think, with Uniswap v2 and Uniswap v3. Uniswap v2 was this set of smart contracts that allows you to do two-sided liquidity pairs, right? And then v3 was where you could do a single-sided liquidity pair. I had to ask what v1 was because I wasn't that far into DeFi back when HEX launched and Uniswap launched all around the same time. And what people told me in Twitter Spaces today was that V1 was where you could only pair something to ETH, basically. So that's kind of interesting. So that's an example of like a contract. It couldn't be upgraded because it didn't have any admin keys, so to speak. And so basically they had to launch a new contract with V2 Uniswap. Then they had to launch a third contract with a V3 Uniswap. And look, that's what PulseX is it's a fork of Uniswap V2, right? So this is going to have to be updated, I believe. There's going to have to be an update to the smart contracts in order to cause the LP fees to be earned again. But when those new smart contracts come out and when you migrate your liquidity, you have to pay attention to what the ratio is, because we don't have any indication that the ratio is going to be the same. So for example, and this is where you could get a severely damaged, because you would almost imagine that the people who are wanting to trick you into providing the wrong ratio, they might be, trying to act first. So basically, for me, I'm going to like wait for a second before I migrate my liquidity because right now I'm testing out, and last week you guys kind of convinced me on the show that, hey, I should check this out. I should dip my toe and dive right in to one of the pairs. And one of the pairs that had just been announced right after we did our show the next morning was wrapped Bitcoin with wrapped Pulse. And I just came away from the Bitcoin conference. So, I didn't want to seem like a hypocrite. I wanted to practice what I preach, and I liked Bitcoin once upon a time, and I like wrapped Pulse, and it's almost like, well, Bitcoin is enough of a stable coin for me in my mind. Like, yeah, with massive volatility, sure, compared to a stable coin. But I figured that would be the thing I wanted to test out, providing liquidity on. So what I'm saying is, let's say that you have $10,000 worth of Bitcoin on one side of the current liquidity provider situation, and then you have 75 million Pulse on the other side, also worth $10,000. What you'd be looking at is, in the new liquidity pool contracts that get launched here soon, that ratio could be all messed up to where if you enter the liquidity pool, you might be way overpaying for Pulse. And so people are going to need to be really careful. And I think people could really get wrecked that way. Does that make sense? Or do you guys have a different way of explaining it to the audience?
No, it makes perfect
that makes
sense
a
to me.
lot of sense to me. In fact, thank you. I didn't even think about that. Like, I was thinking, oh man, as soon as these pools reopen, there's going to be like a 10,000x, percentage, or 10,000%, and so I'm like, you should be the first one in there. Briz, you might be able to get some good gains in those first, that first day. But now that you've said that, you know what? I'm gonna take it a little bit slower and make sure
you just gotta do the calculation. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Here's the big thing about it, right? How can this be? What are you talking about, Matty Allin? This is crazy talk. What are you talking about? New ratios? Well, new pair, first person chooses ratio, and if they know what they're doing or don't know what they're doing, they can pick a number that does not make any sense. That's your point.
And and if you join that liquidity pool as the second person in there, and the ratio is out of whack, then whoever put in the first ratio, they could come back, or anybody could come along and they could take one side of your trade. As a liquidity provider, you're proving to the world that this ratio is valid. This price has been discovered, because you're saying people can take either side of the trade. And so if you misprice something, you lose, because someone will come along and price it correctly. They'll take your side of the trade, and you'll be left with a much differently valued token.
So the ratio of PLS to PulseX right now is 2.58.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. That, like I said, I wrote down the ratio when I first put it in. It was 2.36.
Now, I also was in the Twitter Spaces earlier, and Gamma DevOps popped in, and I think he does a really good job of he's not going to say anything that's not known publicly, or that isn't deducible by just being a blockchain dev. And so, there were a couple questions I had for him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, no comment, can't answer." And then there were a couple other questions I had where it was like, "Yeah, I can tell you how that might work because it's knowable." So basically what we don't know is, are the ink rewards, are those going to start like they did before, super high and then drop down quickly? Or are they going to start at the rates that they are currently going? So that'll be interesting to see. We don't have an answer on that yet.
Oh, we don't.
I was also asking, they don't have to deploy new ink, a new ink contract, do they? And KDP messaged me back about that and was like, "Oh yeah, I don't think that they'll have to." So we should be good to go with the ink. that we have. I also asked in the Twitter Spaces how many ink are generated per second, because we talked about that last week on the show, and everybody had convinced me it was 3 per second. No, it's 1 per second.
Yeah, I figured that out too. I saw on the PLS burn. I'm looking at like how many they say exist. I'm like, okay, and then I just multiplied 86,400 by like 17 days, and that was like the same number of seconds as ink deployed. I'm like, okay, it's 1 per second. And so I'm just like, I don't know how plsburn.com, I don't know how the website, I don't know where they're getting their information from, but yeah, I don't know how it's pulling it, but yeah, that's how I kind of figured out it was 1 per second and not 3.
So
Which is bullish. That's actually even more bullish.
It is,
because
3 times as bullish.
Yeah, it's 3 times more scarce. So I hope the halvening still happens every year.
The original, I should have asked about that. The original schedule that I had heard was 10% less per year, but other people were saying it cuts in half every so often. So
I don't think
again, you got to check the
actually-
code. We got to, keep asking the same questions till we get the same answers.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like we're all living off of secondhand information.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a miracle any of this stuff works, and it's a blessing that we have this volatility. Because people, they could get bummed out, they could get panicked. There was one guy who came into the voice chat this afternoon, and he was like, you don't have to do anything. If you already have money in, like, you are probably going to make it. It doesn't matter if you own doesn't matter if you own HEX or PulseX or Pulse. And it was really refreshing to hear this guy. He was like, I've been in crypto for 9 years. I know how this goes. Like, don't worry, blah, blah, blah. So that was cool.
But was he correct about his information?
I think it's important for people to hear that message that, like, just because your crypto is down 50% or something,
okay,
doesn't mean you need to sell the bottom or freak out or whatever.
Hey, Matty, I want to tell you something.
Yeah.
You ready? You're gonna make it, buddy. You're gonna make it. You're already in. Things are gonna go fine. Sure, there's some bumps in the road. We'll have to just have to wait and see how things play out. That's all. Dips are in the game, by the way. I don't know if anybody ever told you in crypto.
What?
There's a lot of volatility.
Oh, wow.
Even on this show, we talked a bunch of times about 90% dip is in the game, right?
Oh, yeah.
Coming out of the gate. And so when we have these conversations, I guess people hear them, but they just ignore them, right? Or they just don't let them settle in. Not only that, Matty, you know what? It might take a year. It might take a year before people are jumping up and down because we have giant green candles that only go up and to the right. And so that's another aspect, right? Delayed gratification.
Absolutely.
So these are things that I heard and I thought I understood, but when put to the test, it tests me.
It's different when you feel it, huh? When you experience it.
Yeah, like a lot of things, right, Briz?
Yep.
It's different when you feel it.
It's like taking the test versus studying for the test.
Yeah, those flashcards were a lot of fun, but yeah.
But regarding the buy and burn, we were all super pumped about that last week. We were making guesses. Do you guys want to see the results?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes,
wait, before you do that, here, let me couch it this way. I got to tell you something. This whole debacle with the LPs, it's actually a great thing for PulseX holders. We just pumped their backs, right? Look at it that way. So if you were an LP,
they don't feel pumped.
No, I know. Well, it's because it's on the inside, Bruce. You're pumped on the inside. That's but later it'll come forward. Right. Go ahead, Bruce. What we did our guesses last week.
Who won and what did we win?
Well, so last week we had where were we at? We were at 53 billion burned when we last left. Now I don't know if anyone else has been having an error on the PLS burn website, but when I view it in Brave, it gives me different info than when I view it in say like the Edge browser. But anyways, you can find the amount burned at app.pulsex.com/burn. It's up in the top right corner. And we have burned 86.3 billion PulseX. And so that's 33 billion since last week.
I lost.
33 billion.
Who won?
I guess technically I won. I was the closest. I said 90 billion, and we're at 86 billion. The next closest person was Maddie with 100 billion. And then we had Toby with 136.9 billion. And we had very overly bullish ChrispyMan with 200 billion. So,
That's right, buddy.
I think to help put this all in perspective, like where we're at, we don't yet even have a good on-ramp to Pulse Chain. So the people who are participating right now, I want to say, are a lot of people who are already in our ecosystem. And I think that there are a lot of people at the gates. They want to ride the ride. And
they just can't get on.
There's one thing that we learned over the weekend from Abit, who had a very creative way of telling people that he was going to interview RH. Turns out he had hopped in the DeLorean and gone back in time and was counting that as the time that he was interviewing RH, which like technically is correct. Like a lot of people, they were very upset and said that he lied, but other people are like, hey, he actually put a ton of effort into like educating the community and like bringing up all these clips. And so, you know, a lot of people would let it slide. And
I was having a very hard time trying to find like the video. I'm like, where's Richard at? I remember just being so tired when it launched or when he launched the video. I was like, I was having a hard time finding, like looking through Twitter, and everyone was so angry.
Yeah. So yeah, there was lots of anger. But but then RH tweeted and he was like, if I was gonna go live, I would tell you and blah blah blah. And then he said, we need to see, he said, before I even think about live streaming, so that doesn't mean he will live stream when. He said, before I think about live streaming. People are gonna misinterpret that. Before I think about live streaming, he said he would want to see a native Pulse Chain bridge. And so I posted on Twitter like a couple days later, and I'm like, what does this even mean? I did not know what that meant. And KDP and a bunch of other people like immediately within like 5 to 10 minutes had like written a giant thesis on like what this meant, which I super appreciated and shows the power of our community. Basically the idea would be that you could buy wrapped Pulse on Ethereum and then you could send it on the bridge and then it would just be unwrapped on Pulse Chain without having to have Pulse to unwrap your wrapped Pulse. And I think that that is a major bottleneck right now to way more people being able to play the game.
And so do you guys, did you hear the big news? Let me pull
So
it
that's super bullish to me. Do you guys have a reaction to like what I just said?
up. I do.
Wow, that's amazing.
And here I'll add to the stream. Oh, wait a minute. I want to make sure. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, so we got this new Beetroot exchange thing that allows us to send Ethereum or Binance coins, as you can see here, and turn it straight into Pulse, which is really cool. So you could just and you get about one Ethereum worth about $1,900. You can get about 14 million. See, I wish I had commas. You get about 14 million.
The commas are private.
Yeah, you get 14 million Pulse, and I believe it just gets sent directly to your Pulse chain address, and boom, you're in. So there we go, Richard. Let's get a live stream going. There's your native.
I'm not sure if that's what he
bridge.
had in mind, but it seemed like he did tweet that. So there you go.
Know, the only extra step is maybe you have to go through Coinbase to get some Ethereum. So you got your fiat to Ethereum, send it to your MetaMask. You come here, boom. You're not getting the greatest rate, but you're not getting the super bad rate. So that's pretty cool. Beetroot.world/anonymous-exchange.
What a weird domain.
Yeah, right.
Hit the
It
like
seems
button
that-
if you like the idea of being able to onboard people into Pulse Chain or get out.
Hit that like button or get out.
That's right. That's right.
So that's pretty cool. We got that going for us. That's going to help get people into the system a little bit more.
Let's go. Buy the
Smoothly.
dip. So PulseX is like, oh, I got a good one for you guys. I should have tweeted this. Do you know what price PulseX is at?
No. What is it, like quadruple 05? I think it was quadruple
Yeah,
05.
and why is that a special number?
I don't know.
Who's gonna win the trivia? It's between the live chat and ChrispyMan and Brisology. Why is 0.00005? Why is that a special number?
That's below the SAC rate, correct?
Okay.
It's
come on, chat. You can do it. Somebody.
I like this.
Why
answer.
is 0.00005 a magic number?
Oops. Is it?
I don't know, Maddie. I don't remember. I probably looked it up once, but
come on, guys. Thank you, Bitfinesse. Thank you, Bitfinesse. Bitfinesse got it.
Got it.
So Bitfinesse says it is the all-time low of HEX.
Okay. I didn't know that was the all-time low. I knew it was like 1 Satoshi.
Okay, and the reason why we did a 10,000x is because 55 cents is exactly 10,000x away from 0.00005. So people set their limit orders there. This is important to understand the psychology of our market. Richard predicted, or he said that it could do a 10,000x like Ethereum did in its first cycle or whatever, ever. No, it was ever at that time, because I remember Richard's video. He made like a 10-minute video, and he said Ethereum wicked down to 14 cents on Kraken, or wherever he said that it did. This was back in like 2019 when he was building the case for why HEX could do so well. He said, well, it could do 10,000x. And this outraged everybody. You guys will remember.
Yeah.
The Bitcoiners, they canceled him immediately. He was, immediately scorned and burned at the stake, no pun intended, for saying that it could do as well as Ethereum. And Ethereum had gotten, in the previous bull market of 2017, it had gotten up to $1,400. And then it dropped down. It was down around $100 when HEX launched, or shortly thereafter.
Yep.
Got down to like $80, something like that. Right. And so it had fallen down so much. But Richard said, look, it had gone from 14 cents to $1,400. That's a 10,000x. He said, why can't HEX do that? And so on day 33, people sold so much HEX, or they put so little ETH into the adoption amplifier, that the all-time low of HEX was 0.00005. And then people believed in it so much that they sold on a 10x, and then it did a 10,000x up to 55 cents. And I would love to see PulseX do that. But you can buy PulseX today for the same price as the all-time low of HEX.
That's pretty awesome. All right, guys.
Yeah.
We're at the possible lows, all-time lows. I think we are at actual all-time lows.
I mean, there's no knowing moving forward, but it's a fun fact. You can write home about it.
On the back of an envelope.
That's right.
Going backwards.
Can I share one other thing?
Please.
I saw this new website called pulsecoinlist.com, and I thought it was a pretty nice website. It shows all of the Pulse chain coins in a very nice and well thought out way. Also at the very top, there's a airdrop checker, so you can put your public address into the airdrop checker and see what coins on the Pulse chain that you currently have. So yeah, that's a really nice website. I think everyone should put this in their favorites tab and keep an eye on it.
Let's go. We love new tools.
Yeah, great place to go check out some
Now, let's go back to that. Let's highlight a little bit more on that site, because that seemed pretty useful. So you can go down the list here. So what I did, how I used this earlier today, is I looked to compare the price of wrapped Ether from Ethereum to the price of Ether on Ethereum. And it showed me earlier today that there was a 1% difference. And I said, I'm only bridging on ETH, so I'm not going to bother to swap into DAI, which was trading 1-for-1. But then I would have been like, the fees are at that point, the fees would be like worth it on Ethereum to pay up to $40 to do a swap into DAI and then bridge that over, I think. So you can check there. So that's like one function, is to check the pairs between things that have been bridged to make sure that what you're bridging over is actually going to have the value that you think it will.
Is HEX doesn't have parity right now, right?
No, that's just showing you the difference between like what's been bridged over, like which is the same. So like if you take HEX from Ethereum and you sell it on Ethereum, you can get 1.2 cents for it. And if you bridge it over, you can get 1.2 cents for it.
Gotcha. Okay, I get it now.
However, this list is also mixed up with some other important information, which is like, what about my Hedron copy that's not bridged over? How much is that worth? Well, it's telling me right now that that's worth actually 66% of the value on
Pulse chain.
Ethereum, what you have on Pulse Chain, which is like, wow, that's very unusual for a fork. Like, that's pretty incredible. You know, Bitcoin Cash, it only traded up to like a third of a Bitcoin Core token, and then you know, then it dropped down forever. But if you look at something else, if you look at like the Pulse copy of DAI, that's negative 100%. If you look at Gala, I think earlier today was like trading at 10% or 1% or something.
No, not Pepe.
I mean, but they do have a price. It's not all zeros. It's kind of interesting. It's just less than 1% of the value.
Right. Well, some of those, you know, that's what I was referring to before. Some of those, when we brought them over, right, you had to make a decision if you were bridging them over as to what ratio, you know, and keeping in mind the reflexivity. What I tried to do with the ones that I did, because I ended up being first on a couple tokens. I thought about going high in one direction. I thought about going high in another direction. I could not come up with anything better than what is my perceived value at the moment. And so I may have done a couple differently, but so if I was taking a wrapped token, I took its value and I divided it by the current PLS price to come up with a number of PLS, and came up with my ratio that way. It's kind of like setting it to real life. So because I had real money, it was, you know, real value, I should say. So if I bridge the token over, it has a real value. And not that it doesn't have it on Pulse Chain too, it does, but it has a forked value coming from Ethereum, and I didn't want to accept anything less in terms of Pulse than what it was worth at that moment. And I didn't want to go too high in order to like be unreasonably high to cause that exact problem you were talking about. And so I felt that kind of just going to market made sense for me for that, because I wasn't trying to game somebody with it.
Yeah.
But then I took the remainder and did a PRC to ERC20 or a wrap to PRC. And that one hurt my brain a lot too, trying to figure out how I would want that to work. That hurt my brain a lot.
If you guys have any ASIC coins out there, you can bring them over and get a lot more value on the Pulse chain.
No. That's actually that's a weird situation where they, as a community, decided to pull much of their liquidity on Ethereum and stop buying on Ethereum. And it's actually the Pulse Chain copy that's worth 6x, I believe.
Okay.
If you click on that, can we verify what I'm saying? Like, we can't see the full name there. Like, if it includes anything like wrapped from Ethereum or something. Can you click on the entry on the name itself? Does that go anywhere? It doesn't go anywhere?
No.
Okay. Well, that's at least some rumblings that I heard. People could verify that for themselves on chain, but the way that I'm reading that is that the Ethereum version is only worth 2 cents now. It used to be worth $1. And the Pulse Chain copy is worth 15 cents, which is a 6x compared to the Ethereum value. So that's a community. They wanted to adopt Pulse Chain. They wanted to adopt lower fees, and so they chose. And maybe that bridges us, no pun intended, into our discussion of EHEX versus PHEX. The
Before we
thing that's
talk about
dividing our
that,
community.
can I mention one other thing that happened earlier in the week? And it happened
Please.
so long ago. I'm sure everyone's already forgotten about it because it happened on Wednesday. Our favorite YouTube channel that isn't Maddie Allen, Altcoin Daily, they actually opened their show with Pulse Chain, and they even put Richard Hart in their thumbnail.
Whoa.
Did you guys see that?
Is this because I took a picture with Tiffany Fong and left him out?
I think so. They mentioned Pulse Chain, and kind of felt like it was like almost a favor from the Miami conference. Like maybe they told someone they would talk about Pulse Chain a little bit. But I thought it was a little bit of a backhanded compliment because they put up the worst picture of Richard that they could find. And oops. I want to see if maybe I can just pull it up real quick. Oh, Coin Daily.
Probably gotta play with like no sound or something, so we don't.
Yeah, I won't play it. I just wanted to show the
thumbnail. Yeah,
the thumbnail.
It was insulting.
And so it's this one right here. And it was just like it was a really bad picture of Richard, and then when they actually presented his stuff in here, they were bringing up comments from Chris Black, which were like very negative towards Richard and Pulse Chain. And so I don't know. So he was on there, but it felt very backhanded. I really didn't like it. It felt very slimy.
Yeah, well, my bad.
But anyways, I just wanted to mention that, and now we can get to the great debate.
Look, I was driving across the country as usual, and you know who had a really awesome Twitter Spaces for hours and hours and hours about the topic of EHEX versus PHEX?
Who?
Tangent.
Okay.
A lot of hours. There were like 6 hours.
All right, I'm a little upset with Tangent right now.
What happened?
You know what? He was kind of talking earlier today on, I think, the Discourse Syndicate, and he basically was threatening the whole PHEX community, saying that he was going to send it to zero if people weren't like being nice to EHEX. So I don't know what that was about. It just kind of sounded
there were hours
threatening.
and hours and hours of nuance that I can attest to. He went into many beautiful speeches and rants, and he had Motley on and a couple other people who we don't always get to hear from very often, and had different points of view. That was really cool to hear. So basically, I want to say the person who ignited all this was Furu Finance, friend of the show. I guess he's been unfriended by a lot of people because he took such a harsh stance against EHEX. And then Motley and others came out saying like, yeah, EHEX doesn't make as much sense to onboard to because it has high fees. And then everybody else came back and was like, that's not how blockchain works. You had Johnny Chaos, and you had Tangent, a couple other notable people who were all saying, yeah, people want to flex. People want to, whales, they don't care. So they'll cancel out all of your small little cells. so on and so forth. What's up, Furu? So yeah, I mean, like, this is a great debate to have from an intellectual point of view in terms of like keeping everybody friendly. Here's the one comment I'll make is what I've learned in my years of streaming and trying to bring the community together at times and making mistakes along the way. What I've learned is like cross promoting is like a super effective strategy. That's rule number one for me. And rule number two is try to play nicely with others. It's like a kindergarten rule that I have forgotten at times. And so that's like a really cool thing to remember when you're making commentary, when you're doing your shows, when you're gossiping back and forth about all these cool nerdy blockchain things. Like, I have found it really helpful to try my best to practice playing nicely with others.
Yeah, I think that's best practice.
And then like there's people that come along like Tony, who like scammed the shit out of the community, and then it makes it really, really hard to play nicely with everybody. And so, you know, you get some like false positives and false negatives and all that. And there are certainly a couple people in the community these days that I like wish I didn't have to get along with, that sort of thing. But you know, that's yet to be seen.
So, you know, I think the it all basically boils down to is if you're going to onboard new people into HEX, which HEX are you going to onboard them into? And you know, the whole reason why Pulse Chain is here is for low gas fees, is to get people into HEX with the lowest gas fees. And so, you know, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to be telling people to buy EHEX when they should be buying PHEX, because it's going to have lower gas fees. They're going to be able to get more yield back. And while I don't think anyone should be selling their EHEX, you know, I think
well, if people don't buy it, it's not worth anything. So selling it is redundant, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But you know, I just kind of I personally feel like if we all just supported it on the Pulse chain, it could have a higher concentration of value. And you know, and really it's just about the way I kind of see it is when I see people like Somi, your friend Somi, when he's talking about buying EHEX, you know, that to me just that screams to me like a swing trader mentality. And in my opinion, EHEX isn't meant for swing trading, it's meant for staking. And the most important parts of staking are yield and gas fees. And right now, gas fees are tolerable on the Ethereum network, even though they're horrendous.
Grumble, grumble, grumble.
Old man yells at cloud. And so yeah, I think we should be concentrating people into the Pulse chain side. Now, hey, if the Ethereum version of our HEX, if it kind of shrivels into a raisin and it's worth, you know, a fraction,
only in the shower,
so be it. Everyone that had their EHEX before the fork, you have your PHEX as well. And hopefully that one will be worth $5-10 in the future. And it's going to offset the possible losses, the, what's it called? Impermanent loss. You might, it will offset the impermanent loss of our EHEX bags.
For
you know,
historical purposes, let me just throw out there that the price of HEX right now on Ethereum is showing up as 1.4 cents. The price of HEX on Pulse Chain is showing up as 1.6 cents. And the combined value, therefore, is 3 cents. The the recent low of HEX in the previous bear market around the first of the year, it traded at 1.7 cents. And so both EHEX and PHEX are below the low for the cycle. However, combined, they're still above, almost significantly above what the low was. So we're not kind of like, so the combined value is still not as low as it was.
Oops.
So the market is deciding. The price will be discovered. It doesn't matter how many YouTubers maybe come in and say one thing versus the other. It looks like there are still people buying EHEX to the tune of 1.4 cents per unit. And there are still people buying HEX on Pulse Chain at 1.6 cents. Now, we saw when Pulse Chain launched, just a couple weeks ago, we saw that PHEX was actually trading below EHEX for part of those 2 weeks. Is that correct?
True. Yeah,
Okay.
I remember seeing the ratio.
So we've already seen a switch, and now it's anybody's guess, and it's really up to the people who are buying to decide whether we're going to go back and forth, or whether whether the new copy is going to be the more valuable one going forward. And I'll point out that Tangent and Abit and others have dug up every little clip that Richard has ever said about whether the forked copy will be more valuable or less valuable than the original. And believe it or not, there are 8 mentions that RH did over the couple of years before Pulse Chain was launched, where he said something about what the price might be or not what the price might be, but which one might be more valuable, or basically answering the question, will EHEX go to 0?
And he said he would like to see expensive HEX everywhere.
Except for one time. So there was one time where he said, usually it's not valuable, the thing that you're not forking. And then, or he said something like, give me an example of a time where the thing that you're moving to isn't the more valuable thing significantly. So there you go. There's like a 1-to-7 ratio of Richard saying that, the EHEX would not do very well or have much value. And the other times he said he wants to see expensive HEX everywhere. So interesting, huh?
Yeah. But we don't really see him supporting HEX over on the Ethereum Fair or the Ethereum Proof of Work chain.
Breaking my heart. Yeah. I supported those with my well-destroyed dollars. Yeah.
And I feel for you, Maddie. I don't want to see you lose any value.
Oh, it's all good.
But at the same time, I remember I was one of the people that said, don't send your money over there. It just seemed like a really bad idea to buy up those particular hexes, just because it's like now you're splitting up where you're sending your value to, and in order for those ones to rise, people need to start sending in more value to those chains.
Splitting your value, though, how? Because if people did nothing, then they're still getting the same value. Well, it's just the buy pressure that splits, and if it splits evenly, then it's all the same anyway.
Yeah, but I could not see it being split evenly to where people are like, oh yes, I want 20 HEX on Ethereum, I want 20 HEX on ETH Fair, I want 20 HEX on ETH Proof of Work, and I am evenly distributed. Oh, now let me get some 20 HEX on Pulse Chain. I don't really see that future, and I don't really think it's necessary. especially if we all, stand behind the banner of the Pulse Chain Hex. And with that said, because Hex, half the supply is sitting inside the sacrifice wallet on both sides, that means Hex is basically, the supply has been halved on both chains, and so it's the total of one chain if both chains were combined. So I just feel like if we really do concentrate, just say on the Pulse Chain Hex, we can actually have an even stronger Hex, in my opinion, more valuable.
Did you already trade all your EHEX? Is that why you're doing this to us, Briss?
Nope. I have almost all of my EHEX. I bridged over a very small amount, and I restaked all my EHEX. And
have you accumulated more PHEX than EHEX? Have you followed your own advice at least?
I actually used a little bit of my PHEX to trade into PLS and PLSX. I know, heresy. But that's the thing. That's the thing. I should be the one advocating for EHEX to be like, oh no, because honestly, I'm going to tell you the truth. I think that's probably what happened. I think there's a lot of hexicans out there that got their copy of PHEX and probably traded most of it for Hex. I'm sorry, for PLS and PLSX. And now all they have is their EHEX. And now everyone's saying, I think EHEX should die on the vine. And they're like, no, EHEX, please stop. Don't, I don't know. That's just a theory.
Sure.
But I kind of assume, because I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, why are these people getting so angry about Furu Finance talking about Pulse Hex being like, we should support this, turn this into a $10
You're flooding
token.
our bags, man. All of us who are time locked, like,
but
what, you didn't time lock?
Yeah,
you don't have EHEX coming out for a long time.
So
let me give you the case. So let me give you the case for EHEX then, because like, and then we'll see where ChrispyMan lands on this. But like, look, PHEX, it's an untested chain. That's why I like having both. We already saw that there was a bug in PulseX that got discovered today. So like, if you're going all in on Hex on Pulse Chain, well, that's it could be a little bit more risky than doing nothing, but it could also be more rewarding now, couldn't it? It's a miracle any of this stuff works.
I'm surprised.
Where do you land, ChrispyMan?
Where do I land? This conversation is a hard conversation to have these days, last couple of days, because people I'm talking to, if I don't immediately say I absolutely agree with you, they get really mad and start getting louder and louder, trying to.
You don't have to answer.
No, I have an answer for you. I'd like to make a couple of good points. I think are good points. Anyways, first off, I think we're way premature in messaging this with the kind of maxi intensity that's coming at us right now. We're just a couple weeks into this. There's a lot of things need to be worked out in terms of what's going on. I mean, like, it's like a no-brainer that it's cheaper overall to get into Hex on Pulse Chain, right? And they're close
cheaper
enough.
Fees.
Yeah, cheaper fees was, and not in price hacks, of course. And so it's certainly, I got a new person that I probably head in that direction, but I don't know if everyone intends the message to be this way from the people I've heard talking about it, but it kind of like starts out with we're moving to this chain, and then it starts becoming F the ETH and F this and F that, and then today I was on with Access Alive and RHMax and
oh, cool.
and CryptoSloth. We were talking about some other stuff, and Access made such a good point that I think is being overlooked. Where did all the value come from that's on the chain? Where did it all come from? Did it come from some other network, or did it come from Ethereum? Where did it come from? So perhaps we might take it a little slower before we burn the bridge down. Before we start telling everybody, screw everybody over here. We don't want your value. Where's the value going to come from? They're going to bridge it from Bitcoin? Oh, wait. We probably got to go through Ethereum to get here from Bitcoin, right? Where are our on-ramps? We don't have them yet. So I'm just pointing out what it's kind of what he said that kind of like really resonated with me. And I think the other part of it is there are lots of ways people can come to the community. They don't have to all come to the community the same way. And so can't we be a little okay with that? Like for instance, if I got somebody on ETH who's a larger player, maybe they're not ready to pull up roots and move everything to Pulse Chain.
True.
Why can't they participate in HEX on Ethereum? Why not? Are we saying there can't be people? Of course there are. It's immutable code. It's there. So it will be there. And I guess the bottom line is this, is when the people who really don't want to be there, I don't want anybody to emergency unstake their stuff, but if you feel so strongly that you don't even want anybody to be over there, vote with your feet, move all your stuff over to Pulse Chain, and then the people who want it will buy it.
Willing buyer, willing seller.
Right. So I mean, anyways, it's just so contentious. Everybody's like, why don't you just agree with me to do? Nobody should use it. No, I'm okay. I mean, if the market's going to decide. What
that's a great take.
So that's my thoughts on it.
Brisology, you're muted.
But it sounded great, Bruce. It did.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I'm not a F the EHEX side. I'm just at this point, I've been abused by Ethereum so much and their minor cartel that I want to move my economic value over to the Pulse chain. I just actually checked a stake that I have had for 900 plus days, and I went to just see what the end stake cost of it was. And yesterday it was between $168 to $227 to end stake it. And maybe like a couple of weeks ago, no big deal because price of HEX was 5, 6, 7, 10 cents. But now now the cost of EHEX is so low that is actually eating a major percentage of the profits of that particular stake. And I've been abused long enough by Ethereum to where I plan on migrating my economic value over. But so I think I was also thinking about this. Like, I don't want to be like, don't sell all your EHEX. I don't want to be the guy going, sell all your EHEX. That's the thing to do. No, don't sell EHEX. I think what's best, in my opinion, just this is game theory. This is not financial advice. I don't want anyone to do this, but I just feel like the best thing to do is probably bridge over the HEX, and so it gets locked up in the bridge, therefore making it more scarce on the Ethereum side. And also
Brisology's law.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Brisology's bridge law. Is my camera all frozen? Oh man, my camera's going crazy. But yeah, so I just think bridging over the HEX, locking it up, making it more scarce on the Ethereum chain. That way, if people want to buy it, it's like, hey, you know what, you're taking away the sell pressure over there. But yeah, that's just my initial thoughts.
Thanks for the $20 super chat, Danny the singer. It doesn't cost you anything to go into t.me/hex meetup and post in there, and you're welcome to do that. I don't take like paid promotions, but I do recognize that you are contributing to the channel, and everybody's welcome to post in there if you're doing a meetup and you're not going to rob everybody, which I don't think you are, but I want to exclude those people who are stranger danger. But yeah, thanks for letting people know. And that's Friday, June 23rd. Somebody's doing a meetup in Houston. Dinner, drinks, dancing, karaoke. Hey, and that reminds me, I'm going to be out in Vegas next week, so I'll probably do a meetup on no, that's coming up this weekend. So I'll probably do a meetup either on Saturday or Sunday for that. And that'll be really cool. And then I'm going to do like my next big meetup probably in Austin, Texas, because I promised I would do one out there. So more details to come in the future about those two things. But go to t.me/hex meetup, especially if you're in Vegas or Houston or anywhere like that.
Another, I think, social signal that kind of proves maybe that Furu Finance was correct was after he did his spiel about everyone should migrate to the Pulse chain side, Richard followed him. So I kind of feel like that's a sign of approval.
That was notable. Yeah, but we also know Richard, he follows people who are just like doing a good job representing any side of the community. And yeah, so that's always good to see when I mean, like, look, if you were speaking in the Hex conferences or you do like a weekly or daily stream, like Richard should probably be following you if you're not leading people astray and talking about other coins. So
he unfollowed me because I think I tweeted about one of the Pulse Dogecoin derivatives.
I guess you should start your own show.
Right. I only tweeted about it because it was free money, you know, it was like a free airdrop.
I know.
That's the only reason. So I'm sorry, Richard.
Here's somebody who's a member of the channel. Shout out and thank you, Howard, for being a member of the channel. I did a super chat and said, K the fire. And maybe you're asking why ChrispyMan's background says Hex Fire and then the .io is cut off by the Game Theory Gang symbol. Or maybe you're just saying K the fire because like that's a cool phrase. So there you go.
Is it cut off? It doesn't look cut off now.
No, like but when I take the comment away, look.
Oh yeah. I can move it around. I'll change it. I have it in front of my face. Right with the label.
Yeah, photoshopping on the fly is that's what we like around here. And then Far Out Aliens with the $55 super chat. Thanks for all you do, Maddie. Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for supporting the channel.
Hey, so can you share my screen?
Here it is.
You get a chance. So kind of going along the lines of this, these might be a little surprising. These are the numbers that I have so far on this fork in terms of HEX token holder adoption. And surprisingly enough, overall, we're up 3%. I don't know what I expected, but we're up 3% in total holders, both overall and then currently holding HEX in their wallets. And so if we look from the left to the right, you can see 557,589 total wallets that ever held HEX. This is pre-bridge, or excuse me, before pre-fork. And at that time, 333,820 actually held HEX. Right. So after we forked, we now have two different counts, one for the Ethereum side and one for the Pulse side. And you can see that they've changed. They've both gone up. a little bit higher, right? On the Ethereum side, we now have a total number of wallets at 569,000 and change. On the Pulse side, 565,000 and change. But on both chains, the number of wallets containing HEX have gone down. They've gone down. And I think the reason for that, some of the reasons for that anyways, have to do with a lot of people prepped for the fork by putting HEX in their wallet. And they purely had the intention of moving it out and doing something with it afterwards. Whether it was bridged, whether it was sold, whether it was swapped into something else, don't know, right? But so it's pretty distinctive that we saw that drop, the number of wallets dropped, where addresses dropped. And again, to kind of just give you a feel for how this actually worked out. You look down at the very bottom row on the Ethereum chain since the fork, we've had 47,000 plus wallet addresses that have been active, meaning they did something with HEX, but less on Pulse, so 42,000 on Pulse.
Interesting.
Yeah. But
it's cool that you can calculate that and report it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff that we have all this kind of data available to us now. Particularly trying to mash it up. So between the two. So then a good question came up about, okay, well, how many new wallets do we really have at these two chains? So I did I brought the all the EVM addresses together into a single list, and then took a look at them from the perspective of, how many unique addresses do we have overall? And that started showing a little bit different data. So, when we combine the two, the Pulse chain and the Ethereum chain, we do end up with 18,353 more addresses that have interacted with HEX than pre-fork. And we do have about 10,000 more wallets now that actually hold HEX in them. And those numbers run right about 3% of an increase. So that was pretty...
what kind of, I guess, what kind of activity do you think the 47,000 ETH HEX holders being active versus the 42,000 Pulse HEX holders being active, what kind of activity do you think that suggests? Does it sound like...
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that it's... I guess I'll just repeat what I was thinking. So you've seen the activity is higher on ETH, but the number of wallets holding HEX has gone down. The number of stakes has not gone up in the same manner as on Pulse chain. It's gone up, but not in the same manner. And so that movement has been to either bridge across or swap out, or maybe LP. I mean, that could be the case too.
That makes sense.
Those would be the three things that would have been happening, or they might have transferred to another wallet, but without doing like some really extensive analysis, you wouldn't know. But even if they sent it to another wallet, it counts as a new one unless they combine them or something. So I'd likely say it was one or two things: capture the value into something else, or bridge it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's my thinking. So here's my thing. I think that we'll keep watching this. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't say it's going to just go up at this rate. But right now, it looks like combined, we have more, based on the measure of addresses, we have 3% more adoption, which is the equivalent of 3% more nodes, right? According to our measurements. That's the spiel there. The other thing, I don't know if you guys are interested in the other data, but if you want, let me know, Maddie. But on this,
let's hear it.
Oh, okay. I'll show you what I have been doing then. This is just the first This is just
first iteration.
Yeah, first kind of iteration through this. So I started grabbing the different charts and bringing them together now, where we can actually look and see a little bit too much data on here for me, but it does clearly show what the difference is between the original hex on Ethereum, the hex on Pulse Chain, the wrapped hex, and what those prices are, as well as the combined prices. And still feel it's pretty interesting that the combined prices are just about what the price was before the fork. Just about.
Oh, very
Yeah.
cool. This is actually a chart that Day 43 OG, he was requesting basically a like a trident chart where it was like you have your EHEX going from from Genesis to the fork, and then it splits off into the EHEX, the PHEX, and then the combined amount of both of them. And so, yeah, looks like kind of got something like that right here.
Yeah, I threw a couple extra things in there because a little bit complicated. Like I might drop some of the stuff, but yeah, it kind of shows the prices are moving together. Okay, now I don't, they're not exactly at a parity, of course, and they're not at a specific ratio, but they are moving together. So we'll see how this continues to play out. I mean, you can argue that, and people are right. I mean, let's not get into that again about whether one's more valuable or not, or than another.
The data that you're sharing, is this something people can get by going to hexfire.io, or do they have to be a subscriber to your Patreon, or do they just have to come to Game Theory Gang every week?
I'd start with Game Theory Gang every week because it's really important to cross promote. I just want to point that out.
Ooh,
Things like that. And no, this particular one, this one is actually on the public site. So
cool.
if you go to the price chart on HexFire.io, you see that. I couldn't get everything up there yet, but it's up there. I'm still working on how I want to do the models because there's a lot of data slinging that I need to do. But yeah, and thanks for that. And then for a lot of the other stuff that I do, I have it all out on the Patreon pages as well. So, I was able to do this, and actually we can do this with any asset now. I have just got.
And your Patreon, that's less than the cost of a cup of coffee per day. Is that right?
Not at this time. No. But because I shifted over to YouTube membership.
Okay.
Instead, because it's like
cool.
$4.99, but because I finally had gotten that far.
So it's way less than the cost of a cup of coffee.
Yeah. But if somebody
every day for a whole month, that's what they normally compare it to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then it's less either way then, based on the kind of coffee I buy. And every time I go to get coffee, I had to do that every month. I'd be paying $70 a month for coffee.
That's right.
I did that every day.
Right.
I buy instant coffee.
All right. So the other thing, actually, instant's pretty expensive, but it can be good. So I've started working through the Hedron prices and also the ICOSA prices. And eventually, I get to Maximus DAO. But here's another one that I think you'd really appreciate. This is TShares. So this is TShare count. And so it looks a lot bigger than it is, on the screen. But we are seeing that there's more staking taking place on Pulse Chain, as I predicted. How do you like that? As I predicted prior to the fork, we are seeing more people staking on the Pulse side.
ChrispyMan predicted it.
That's right.
Wow.
I called it on the days.
Yes.
But anyways, it is going up, and so we are beginning to see that, right? And so Ethereum is lagging a little bit behind, and but this is primarily due to attention, not different staking behavior. Okay, so yes, it's going to gap a little bit, but in terms of the counts, but it has to do with staking behavior more than anything else. Whether or not people are getting to do their stakes, whether they're on staking, all affects these numbers, right? Those are still out there. The other one that's pretty, all these are interesting to me, so I better stop saying interesting. So this is the HEX payout per day. We had some pretty awesome HEX payouts on Ethereum most recently. Unfortunately, one of those due to a huge hack, some emergency end staking. I see people saying, "Oh, and emergency end stakes are out of control," and everybody. I always wince when somebody goes, "Everybody's emergency end staking." Well, first off, not true. Everybody is not emergency end staking.
I'm not.
Right, I'm not either. Secondly, yeah, we might have a little bit of an uptick, but even these days, if we see 4 or 5 million in a day, nobody really bats an eye, in terms of penalties. It's small in the huge sphere of things. So, I hear that being substantiated for a reason for X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't really affect things. But our payouts at this level, when you look at both chains, are going to look pretty much the same on both chains for a while. I mean, it's going to take some time for those to diverge. And by payouts, what I mean is the total amount of inflation plus penalties that come out on a daily basis. When there's low penalties, you can see they match up fairly close. I mean, it's not exactly the same number, of course. But then that gets us to payouts per T-share. Again, payouts have been bouncing around a little bit. You can expect the payouts per T-share without penalties to be lower on Pulse Chain, right? And that's because the payouts are about the same, but the number of T-shares are going up, and so the payout per T-share will be lower. Will you even be able to see that on a daily basis if you were to look at, two stakes on each chain, same number of T-shares? It'll look very tiny. It's just that over time, over 5 years, 10 years, it'll be it'll begin to emerge, and then a little bit later, once we start getting a difference in the payout per T-share, you might begin to see it. But right now, it doesn't look different. Now, it'll be off a little bit. What will change? What will change is the oh geez, I forgot what I was going to say. I read the chat. No, I don't think the colors are reversed. The pink on this one is actually ETH, because that's where we had the big amounts that had come out that were penalties, and that we haven't seen that over on the Pulse Chain side. But maybe I'll remember that thought. But I was just kind of getting the payout per T-shares moving, and then let's see. So then our share rates. Again, I know I've talked to this ad nauseum. Our share rates going into the future have been programmed in the past. And yes, they can vary a little bit and change, but pretty much they're going to follow the same line for a while, right? Because for the share rate to change, you really have to change yield significantly, and or emergency end stake a lot of the stakes that actually would have caused increases. So I expect these numbers just to kind of go up and to the right together for a long time. So
Yeah.
this is where I've gotten data wise so far. Go ahead.
A lot of people thought that these numbers would start diverging a lot harder after the fork, but I don't know. It seems like
only people who didn't listen to ChrispyMan.
That's right, because I predicted it on the day. Hey, well, you know what happens, Bruce, is I do this sometimes too. Kind of in my head, I know that they're going to be different, and so I'm like, oh, they're going to be different, but in reality, they are different.
In your head, you're like, you're going to have this huge
the big spaces
chasm.
the big spaces in my head.
Oh, I got big spaces in my head.
Yeah, in reality, right? I mean, they are diverging. All of these are diverging. What they'll end up being, we don't know, but there'll come a day where we'll be able to see it a year or two down the road. So at least from a mechanical perspective, everything's still working the way it always did. We just got 2 chains now. Contract continues to do its thing. You know,
Yeah, if
people
I
are
can,
interacting.
I think what Fox Mulder from the X Files, I think what he was trying to say is that the green line is pulse, right? But if that blue dotted line is where pulse chain launches, um, shouldn't the green line start to the right of that blue line, like how the pink one is?
Oh yeah, it's quite possible that my data is off or something. But on this one, this is, I'll have to go look at it because, like I said, this is under development. But I
Okay.
don't know actually if we did have different T-share rates for that day or so. Don't know.
I guess the ETH and pulse chain rates would be exactly the same pre-fork.
Yeah, pre-fork. But now, did the fork happen on the 9th? Is that the exact date? I believe it is.
It feels like
The 12th.
Well, we knew about it the 12th.
Oh, okay.
Right. So that might explain the couple days of it being flat before it
what we
started
can.
diverging. Right. Because the only way it could diverge is somebody started taking action on pulse chain that's different than ETH. But I'll dig into it a little bit further. But these are the numbers being reported from the blockchain, from the contract, whether I have the blue line in the right spot or not.
PLS Burn says we're day 19 since May 13th.
Okay. I mean,
that would make sense.
Been 17 days since the 13th.
Yeah, because this is the 13th right here on this. Oh, that's the 11th. There's 13th right there.
And if you're going by UTC, then it's been 18 days.
Or dog years.
Man, all this stuff is so confusing.
Thanks for this. Thanks for the super sticker tea time, and thanks for being a member of the channel. It's a picture of a pair dancing, saying #1 fan.
I like dancing pairs. Well, different kind of pair. But my thinking on this is we'll keep building out the data, and not the lower one, Briz. I'm talking about upper.
Yeah. One thing I just want to mention I forgot about. Someone in the chat said the perpetuals are extremely cheap on the Pulse chain. I was thinking about like, hey, if you want people to buy HEX on the Ethereum chain, I 100% recommend having them buy the perpetuals, like the Maximus, and the
Desi, Lucky, Trio, Base,
because those you're gonna get actual HEX when those come due, and you're not gonna be burdened with all the gas fees. I mean, you gotta remember why those were created in the first place.
Right, and gas is still expensive over there, and for any transaction, but it's not super expensive for the small stuff like doing a swap. To that end, there was a time where it cost over $3,000 for a billion Hedron over there, and it's going for like $300 right now on the Ethereum chain. And I thought about that a little bit. I'm not giving anybody financial advice to do anything, but we remember on that chain, we do have all of those HSI auctions still out there. And man, can you imagine getting future HEX at a 90% discount on price, but also getting a 90% discount through an auction? So if I was playing a board game or my own gaming table, I might be thinking about what do I want to do in 12, 13, 14 years. Maybe I might be thinking about some of those things.
I would add a word of warning that if you don't hold it to maturity, then you suffer the low liquidity. And so for a lot of these things, they have super low liquidity. You push the price against yourself when you're buying it, like for the perpetuals on Pulse Chain, but you are getting a discount. So if you hold it to maturity, then you are getting a great deal. If you are not holding it to maturity, you might find that you can't sell it for even the great deal that you got it for along the way. And so, for example, Desi was trading around parity or around, equal value for what its underlying value was. And then it dropped all the way down to 0.85. So it was down like 15%, even if you accounted for the amount of hex that it was holding. So, and then I think it dropped even lower than that. So just because you have a tokenized or something that's tradable, it doesn't mean that you'll get the value that you paid for it, or that it will move exactly the same way that hex does. And sometimes it'll trade at a moving premium or discount, and that's clearly described on the perpetuals site. So that liquidity situation matters. And thanks for the super chat. Hex Holmes, it says, keep up the great game theory insights and alpha, guys. We need to put glasses on because the future is so bright.
That's right.
And shout out to Crypto 7 who typically puts on sunglasses. I'll play along.
I already have glasses on. I can't put my sunglasses.
There you go.
Bad.
You guys who live at the beach, you have your glasses right there. I don't have sunglasses here. Yeah. Well, hey, I think that's a good point, though, Maddie, because whether you're talking about Maximus DAO stuff or the Hedron stuff, people have always asked me, "What do you think? What do you think? Should I buy this stuff?" So listen, I'm in it for Hex, right? So what are my concerns? My number one concern is whether there's liquidity. So if I was to purchase any Maxi, and I have, if I was to swap into it, hold any, it's because I'm willing to wait 15 years on that portion, right? I have that. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that there are chances that different things could happen. One of them is that it doesn't hold value because for some reason there isn't liquidity. So at the end, I want my hex, right? Same thing with HSIs. My personal experience, I have HSIs. I cannot get back the value out of the market for what I paid for them at the time and the value that I put in. Well, a lot of reasons for that. The market's going up and down and whatnot. But same thing, I got to be prepared to wait until they come up and they're due for maturity. And so as long as I can live by those rules, it's good. And I like having, I like getting the extra t-shirts and stuff for the future. I mean, that part I like. But anyways, that's my thinking on it too. I agree with you 100%. You're right.
And if you're not holding these derivatives, these tokenized shares, then and you're just holding liquid hex, then you're not earning trustless APY. Mm-hmm. If you are using native hex stakes, then emergency end staking is probably going to be more expensive than taking a lower value for your wrapped stake or your tokenized stake. And so there's a little bit of difference there that you can see. Like, if Desi's trading at 15 or 20% off, normally you would lose more from an emergency end stake, I would imagine. So there you go. Lots to consider.
On a related topic, I don't know if you had seen this or not, but Alex from Hedron, I don't think it's a secret because it's on Twitter, but he had put out a few tweets. We know that he's been working on some new projects and contracts and stuff. And so there's nothing really to talk about now, but other than to say he had indicated he was working on something that would be a marketplace of sorts for HSIs that would be using the ICOSA token. He's also talked about potentially forking over
Rocket Pool.
And his most recent tweets seem to suggest he might be working on something else, but of course, of course, it's a big tease because if you don't know what he's working on, you don't know. So I don't know what he's working on, but I thought it's exciting enough to distract from some of the other stuff going on.
I have no expectations.
I have none either. I have none
I'm
either,
expecting a lot, Mr. McWhorter. Just kidding. I'm just joking.
He's done some good stuff. Yeah.
Alex is one of my favorite hexagons in this space.
Yeah, and I suppose the comment about Scout is that perhaps he has something to do with Block Scout, which is another new product that's coming to market, but I don't have any details on.
People just keep building all kinds of stuff in this decentralized world now, don't they?
Yeah. That being said, not specifically with Block Scout or anything else, I am finding it difficult to hold back from clicking on stuff, and I'm getting stuff sent to me all over the place. So really taking a step back and have I don't click on all links that come over, and so I think it's important to remind people, check out things before you start going to the websites and interacting.
And my mom, she just sent me like a link to like an e-card. I'm like, I don't even have any crypto on my phone, but I'm like, I'm not clicking that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, so your mom sent you a text that says you haven't looked at it yet.
Wow.
But
a lot of
gotta
people
be careful. Gotta be careful.
A lot of people asking about Time Pays Me, Maddie.
Yeah, they really are. Why do you think that is? Thanks, Tea Time, for the $20 super chat. Grind, don't stop. Hustle won't quit.
Was there a big hack the other day? ChrispyMan, you said there was a big bump up in the Ethereum
30 million
payout because of a hack.
Do we know what happened?
Yeah, is there any information regarding that?
I know I don't have anything on that one. Nobody's reported specifically on it. ATX was covering it on one of his streams, but like I don't know the person or anything. But it seems like it would be a hack because the person lost a lot. And the reverse of that is our friend Hex 19. I believe it was also reported that he was able to get his sack without any trouble, which was very nice.
I reported that.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that might have been you that reported that. I might have even
also the second biggest hack that I heard of also was able to recover their sacrifice.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Well, what
were you saying, ChrispyMan?
We're starting to get reports in from a lot of other people that they are being scammed and hacked, and they see a couple reports a day. So be careful out there. I mean, even the smartest of us make mistakes sometimes.
Correct.
And just in general, I'm not being alarmist, but dude, PulseX isn't always intuitive to me. And so I start doing some different things in there, and I'm clicking and clicking and clicking. God damn it, didn't I swap exactly the reverse of what I was trying to swap? Because I was looking up, contract numbers to make sure they're right. So just double check what you're doing, and
yes,
and make sure you got the right contract numbers. Normal thing that we say for quality control.
I gotten a lot of questions just in general because Time Pays Me is covering a lot of things. It's a way for people to be able to time lock their Pulse Chain and PulseX tokens or any ERC or PRC20 tokens. You can do a lock back to you over time. You can do a hard lock. You can also undo a hack if you've set up your second seed phrase, which is a pretty unique feature there. And then the reason why we're delayed is because I added at the last minute a behavior lock, which allows you to generate a password that you can give to somebody who wants to verify that you're changing your behavior, and you can unlock the money as soon as you change the behavior, or wait a year if you fail to change the behavior or somebody loses your password. So lots of really cool things that could come from all that. And so that's the quick breakdown.
Maddie, I'm sorry. What do you mean wait a year?
So like so I'm describing 3 different types of locks. You can do a lock with a drip, and that can be 0 to 55 years. You can do a hard lock where it doesn't trip and it only comes out at a future date. That's 0 to 55 years. But the behavior lock, where you tell the blockchain 31 characters to say what behavior you want to change, it has a fail safe built into it. So in case somebody loses the password, or you made such a difficult behavior change goal that you couldn't change your behavior. Like, for example, what if I say I'm going to get out of bed every morning? What is Richard always saying? He says, Bitcoin, it can't wake you up in the morning, right?
Yeah, you can't set alarm.
Yeah. You can't program Bitcoin to wake you up in the morning. Well, guess what? You can program Pulse or PulseX or any ERC or PRC20 token to wake you up in the morning with time pays me. Okay. But what if you set your goal of like, I want to wake up and take 10,000 steps in my day to be like a healthy person, and then you break your leg forever, right? That would really suck. And you'd have to cheat by like, putting the Fitbit on your dog, or like begging your behavioral validator to lie or whatever. But we needed a failsafe built in case you pick a goal that's impossible, or you get in over your head, or the person you give your password to loses it, that sort of thing. So no matter what your behavior change goal is, after a year, even without the password, you can unlock the funds. So it's kind of like a punishment. Like, if I don't change my behavior, then I have to wait a year. But if I change my behavior, I get the money now.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah. So we'll, have lots of cool examples, I hope, of people changing their behavior, and using time locking to try to help themselves, to save yourself from yourself, to get more comfortable with the idea of time locking. So you might be more interested in HEX and all that good kind of stuff. So really excited about all that. And we're getting ready to go to audit again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know how long audits take roughly?
Last time it took 10 days.
Okay. It's not too bad.
But how we might deal with it is we might do something where we get audited and then we do a stealth launch and we test it out for like a week there. That's kind of the plan. And then like, as soon as, I would imagine it might be that as soon as I'm telling people, hey, it's live and we're live with time pays me, then that would also be the time where I'm like, by the way, here's this little bug bounty program I made where I'm telling you my seed words and you can play around, with my wallet first to prove to yourself that it's safe. That'd be cool. And then I've also said that it would be really cool if I found a way to like break down the code line by line, or have some community participation in auditing it or commenting on the code and saying what it does. And then to have like a super long stream where people who are really interested, where they can learn about, well, why did you make the game theory that way? Why did the code get coded that way? And all that good kind of stuff. So it'll be good to see. That's what I would want. That's what I would want out of a project. So that's what I want to do.
Well, I'm looking forward to using it. I wanna give it a try.
Yeah.
I got a couple wallets here to the side that I think it would be
cool.
A good experiment with.
Yeah. Somebody said Rackham had dumped some of his coins. I think I read somewhere on Twitter that he had dumped a couple billion and he had like 100 or 200 billion.
Yeah, I'm just seeing this in the chat for the very first time. I don't know anything about Rackham's bags.
Sami reported on it, I believe, just before we went live. So that'll be something people can look forward to catching up on and diving into.
I'll report on it next week.
There you go.
I always feel bad, like, because I'm like, I see some like interesting stuff that happens on like Wednesday or Thursday, and then I feel like by the time we talk about it today on Tuesday, I'm like, man, it just seems like such old news, like that altcoin daily video.
Yeah. But I'm glad you still brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about it last week, so it wasn't here last week.
A lot of people watched the show from last week. I think it was over 6,000 people. So shout out to you if you're watching live right now. We got 300. If you're watching on the replay, go ahead and engage with the content. Hit the share button, hit the like button, leave a comment, even if you're watching later on. And we will really appreciate that engagement.
Tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. Tell me how wrong you think I am.
Right.
I don't really have too much more on my agenda here.
I've been doing survey storms on Twitter. I just came up with that term as we're speaking, but I do have results to share.
Yeah, let's check it out. I
have,
haven't seen any of you have polls going on.
Oh, dude, every day. And they are off the charts. The number of people who are answering these surveys, it's like a psychologist's fantasy.
I feel like they're not being shown to me.
Huh. Well, maybe you have me muted or something.
Did you mute me? No,
I did not.
Maybe I muted you.
Ouch.
I'm just joking.
So let me hit the share button here.
I'll come right back, Matty. I'm just going to turn off my camera.
So I did a vibe check earlier today. This is just like hours in. There are already 1,300 votes. Wait, this says final results. Okay, maybe this has been up for a day. But I was vibe checking the percentage of people who would just answer the question. Like, it doesn't say pick one. It doesn't say what do you think is the best, but it was just basically saying vibe check. The question was PulseX, Pulse, EHEX plus PHEX or incentive token. And the number of people who were liking PLSX, 44%. The number of people who are liking Pulse, 25%. The number of people who are liking HEX, 23%. And incentive token only got 6.6% of love. So some people would like that is the contrarian play.
Huh, interesting.
Then
seems like everyone loves PulseX though.
Yeah, it pulled away from the pack, didn't it? Then we had the day before I asked, have you ever had sudden wealth syndrome? And I was actually really shocked by this because I asked this at a time when we were not at all-time highs. HEX is, sitting around 3 cents combined. The PulseX sacrifice had dipped 25% below SAC. Right now it's like 50% below SAC. PulseX had been at a 2.3x or something from SAC, and now it had gotten down yesterday to maybe 1.5, and now it's at 1.3. So people not feeling super rich at the moment, but asking still, have you ever had sudden wealth syndrome? The answer surprised me. 876 people voted. 28% said yes. 61% said no. 10% said haven't heard of it. But if you do the math, the number of people who said yes is like 240 people.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to crunch that number in my head. That's pretty awesome.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah, you can think about that. Like when people ask how many people Richard has made rich, you got 28% of the respondents right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so a lot of these I think have been worded well. I did one today and I was like, wow, I really worded that badly. But hey, at least I'm pumping these out daily, huh? So on the 27th, I put what makes you, I was doing them where I put them in Richard Hart's tweets because he had like kind of cryptic tweets or I was trying to expand upon what he might be saying and letting people fill in the blank themselves. So Richard had tweeted, lots of people are super sad that they sold their Bitcoin back when it was nearly impossible to buy. I remember when there was only one exchange in the world that you could buy BTC from. And I said, what makes you more sad now? Asking the audience, selling Bitcoin, people said 21%. Selling Pulse made 78% sad. There were 440 votes on that. If you go to my page now, you can see that I'm doing the survey that was poorly worded down here. 1,000 votes already. I said, are you not mad? 39%, or not affected? 61%.
You
and of
mad,
course,
bro?
You can imagine that I was talking about LP providing and the fact that there was a bug in PulseX and you weren't getting LP fees, even though you were getting really good incentive rewards if you were in the farms. I mean, and this is like really, really poorly worded because there's no category for like somebody who is mad and affected. So it's kind of almost like forcing the answer of like, were you affected or were you mad? But you can't be both.
True, huh?
Which is just very Twitter-like, to be twittering about, you know, the irony that actually a lot of people may have been affected, might be mad, and that choice is missing. So as a psychologist, as a self-proclaimed crypto psychologist, I apologize for the banter there, but there you go. Mike L said in response to the Sun Well syndrome, he said, when I told my girl how much we made at the end of the last cycle, she went a little crazy. She started being extremely frugal and had to see a therapist.
Is that because, Mike, is that because you made a lot of money or because you did not make a lot of money? You know,
It could have been that that she was realizing how valuable crypto could be and pricing it in future mad gains almost. It's important to strike the right balance for you between delaying gratification and providing for yourself today.
kind of reminds me of that meme where the guy's like, hey, he's holding his fiance's like eyes shut. He says, hey, remember that house we were saving up for? And like he reveals it's like a negative 95% down.
Ouch, not funny. Somebody's asking, what price do I think PulseX will be worth in about 9 years? I have no idea. Just whatever people are buying and selling it for at that point. Yeah, but it could go up 10,000x. It could go down 100%. Those are the that's pretty much the range.
Yeah, guys, just remember all of our cryptos are down a lot right now, but they can always drop another 50%. You know?
Yep.
It can always
Tips are in the game.
We're down 98%, but it can go down another 50 to 98%, which
We have a special guest.
Let's hope it doesn't. We have a special guest?
ChrispyMan. Who do you have there?
You're muted.
Hey, thanks. This is my little buddy Duke.
Hey, Duke.
How you doing, bud?
Nice.
Does he have a coin or what?
What's that?
Yeah, does he have his own currency?
Yeah, Duke coin. Yeah, gonna make the Duke coin. So sometimes he comes in here and wants to sit on my lap. Usually not while I'm streaming.
Yeah. So
Cool. And then I got into it with Eric Wall. He personally insulted me yesterday, which I found to be
On Twitter?
validating, because I wasn't personally insulting him. So he kind of like, he must have ran out of intelligent or funny things or entertaining things to say, which I see as a minor victory in a long drawn out war between Eric and I. I can't wait until the moment I get to debate him. I think that he prides himself as a shit poster. He likes to rile up different communities. We know that. He has a different style than, let's say, Jack does, because he's not out trying to ruin every blockchain or trying to say things that are obviously false just to get attention. Like Eric is kind of a different type. But look, he was wrong about Richard not being able to come to the US. And I think he's wrong about Pulse Chain and PulseX not being able to outperform.
Eric
He was also wrong about so remember when Eric said Hex is the dumbest thing he's ever heard of. That was in Malta when him and Richard debated each other. Richard was on stage in Malta predicting the 65K top, the freaking
had
3
Hex
or
even launched
4K
at that point.
Christmas. Hex had not launched at that point.
Yeah,
like
it was pre-launch effects.
Richard predicted so well. I mean, he didn't just predict the direction correctly when everybody else was guessing wrong. Tone Vase was calling for $1,800 Bitcoin or something. It didn't go down that low. So Richard called the bottom and the top nearly perfectly. And people are coming into the thread saying like, well, it wicked up to 69K. So Richard was wrong. Everybody was calling for 100K or $1 million Bitcoin at that point. And he started calling for 11K. GBTC fell down to 11.1K.
Yep.
Anyway.
And even then, Bitcoin hit 15K, which is like, it's like right there. I mean,
yes.
Come on. How much closer do you need it to get, right?
Yes. So Eric is wrong. Richard is right. I will debate Eric and probably lose because I'm not as good of a debater, but the difference between who's helping more people, who's educating more people, it's good to have competition in that regard. It's good to have a counterpoint. It's good to bet each other tungsten cubes. So
I would just say this, Maddie. If you debate him, like, feel free to tell him to shut up and stop talking over you. Okay. Like, because I feel like, I think you're such a good therapist. You like let people wait and finish their entire point before you even start. And I feel like he's just gonna you're gonna do that, and then he's gonna interrupt you and step on everything you say. And I think at a certain point you're probably gonna have to be like, Eric, shut up and let me finish my point.
Yeah. Well, he was supposed to come on my channel for the 48-hour live stream, and Funny Jim set it up, and he was gonna like walk over to my studio. What was that, a week or two ago? And apparently he was too hungover
or scared.
So was he drowning his sorrows or what?
He just seems like a sad little guy. I feel for him, actually.
But yeah, nonetheless, I just I think he's out there testing people's patience and shit posting, and I think he's wrong. But it's also weird that Buck is on his side, that, Pulse Chain can't do 10,000x. They started at 600 million or $1 billion. And I'm out here like, okay, well, you're setting people up with leverage. So of course you're saying something's not possible because you have the wrong incentives.
Right. It's, I kind of feel it's like, a man, what's the quote? We're saying a man can never understand if his salary depends on him not understanding.
That's a great quote, man.
That's a very good one. It's so true. It's so true.
Anyway, you know, like, yeah, so at the end of the day, there's skills when it comes to debating, there's skills when it comes to like actually predicting the future, and then some people create the future. And I hope that we fall on that side of history where we're making the world a better place. What do you guys say? Is that a good goal?
I think making the world a better place is the objective.
Yeah.
Family, family, friends, community.
You know, and that's my like biggest gripe with like Eric Wall, especially, but also Mr. Forever Downcoin. I just feel like they're not making this place a better place. And I just like, you know, I like people that are positive and we're trying to uplift this community. We're trying to save people from the scams by getting them into a working financial product. Prices are low. Those are market cycles. And you know what? I'm here for the Richard Hart ecosystem, and we are barely 2 to 3 weeks into this, and we are just getting started. Guys, I'm telling you, 3 years from now, things are going to be forever changed.
Forever.
Cool.
Forever.
So get your hardware wallet today. Don't ever share your seed phrase. Hit the like and subscribe button. Check out Brisology and ChrispyMan on their different socials that are linked in the description below. Subscribe to the Patreon. Subscribe to the YouTube and Twitter. Hit the like and share button on Twitter. Appreciate y'all. And let me
much
see.
Appreciated. Yeah.
Check out all the meetups that are happening. There's a Pulse Chain tour going on there. I'm doing impromptu meetups coming up this weekend, probably in Las Vegas, and then in a month or 2 or 3 in Austin, Texas. So you can go to t.me/hex meetup. And until next time, stay wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Have a great week.
You too, guys. A terrible picture.